Welcome into another interview of Cheatham County legends and icons, I like to say, that we're going to capture for the archives of Cheatham County. And today we have with us Tim Adkins.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate being part of this important project to preserve the history of Cheatham County.
Well, I appreciate that. When we started talking about names, I didn't know of anybody who had a better front row seat to the last 20, 30 years. When did you come to Cheatham County?
I actually started at the Ashland City Times in January of 1996. I was a reporter for 4 years. I graduated from Freed-Hardeman University in 1994, and right after graduating from college, I worked at the Herald-Gazette. It was a weekly newspaper in Trenton, Tennessee. And so about a year later, I wanted to gain more experience. So I had sent a resume in to the Leaf-Chronicle in Clarksville, and at that time, they oversaw all the Gannett-owned newspapers, the weekly newspapers in the Middle Tennessee area, including the Ashland City Times. And so they told me they had a reporter's position open at the Ashland City Times. So applied for the job and came up here and interviewed and got it. And I started actually the first week in January of 1996.
Brand new year of 96.
That's right.
When you rolled into Ashland City or Cheatham County, what were your first thoughts?
Well, I had never been to Cheatham County before, and I remember driving along River Road and driving along the Cumberland River and then seeing the 2-lane covered bridge that went over the Cumberland River into Ashland City. And I think I was just taken back by the beauty of the county.
No. Did you grow up near Trenton, or where
I
did you
grew up in Milan,
Yeah.
home of the Milan Bulldogs. Actually, when I was in high school, I wrote a weekly column for my hometown newspaper, the Mirror Exchange. It was called News from the Doghouse. Like I said, we were the Milan Bulldogs. So it talked about all the things that were happening at Milan High School. So that's where I got my first start. I remember growing up, my mom and dad, our family, we subscribed to the Jackson Sun newspaper. So we read that religiously, subscribed to it. And I think that's where I developed my love of newspapers.
So you come to the Ashland City Times in 96, a reporter. What was your beat, or what areas did you cover?
We covered just about everything.
As a weekly newspaper?
Yeah, as a weekly newspaper. So, you do just about everything. You cover some of the government meetings, some of the county commission and school board and city council meetings, as well as feature stories, high school ball games, school events, community events. And, back then you took pictures and you wrote the stories and you helped design the newspaper. So it was just a little bit of everything. And then in 2000, I became the editor, and I was the editor there from 2000 to 2002. And then in 2002, I decided to pursue some other opportunities in the newspaper business. And the Tennessean, they were launching a new community section called Davidson AM. And so I joined that team, and I was the Bellevue reporter. So I worked as a reporter at the Tennessean for 2 years on this section. And then in 2004, I went to the Dixon Herald, and I was the editor of the Dixon paper for about 2.5 years. And then I went to the Daily News Journal in Murfreesboro and was the business editor there. And all of these papers are owned by Gannett. And so I, was able to stay, within the company, but just had a lot of other opportunities. But in 2008, Shirley Bradley, she was the general manager of the paper at the time. She called and told me that the editor position was back open in Ashland City. And she asked me if I would consider coming back. And I decided to do that. I think of all of the places that I have been, Cheatham County, Ashland City, just felt like home.
What made it that way? What was different?
I think it's just the people. From day one, they welcomed me with open arms, and they just had that strong sense of community.
But I want to go back to the newspaper, because that's where you've had a true front row seat. County government, all the changes.
I think the population of Ashland City was under 3,000 when I started here in 1996, and I think the population for the county was just under 30,000. And so just in the last 30 years, we have seen tremendous growth. Ashland City, our population is now approaching 5,400, and I think our county population is a little over 41,000. But in 1998 is when the widening of Highway 12 from Ashland City to Nashville took place, and I think that really opened Cheatham County and Ashland City up for growth. If you look at Highway 12 now, it is just lined with apartment complexes and condos, and the Cheatham County Industrial Park is there. And we've had several new businesses open within the last few years, like Camus Boats and Nashville Fabrications, and more are coming in the industrial park area. And then in 2004, the Ashland City Walmart, they moved out to Highway 12, and then you just see a lot of the commercial development out there as well. Just in the last few years, we saw the opening of a Hampton Inn in Ashland City, and just in this year in 2023, a new Waffle House opened, and I think there's more potential for a lot more growth there in the Highway 12 corridor.
Before they widened that to, like I said, 4 lanes, 2 going each way, describe that road.
It was a very narrow road. You went right along the railroad tracks and the Cumberland River there, and that portion of Davidson County, and it was pretty scary, in points there. But it took you a little bit longer to get to Nashville, back then.
On that road not too long ago, because for years, and it's still there.
Yeah,
and it's just like you remember it, but it even seems smaller than you remember it when you go up through there now.
Yes.
But you still see that drop off in that same rock wall and that curve that we used to deal with. And of course, like I said, State Industries had most of their trucks going up down through there as a 2-lane too, which was a little frightening at times. Who was mayor when you came to town in 90?
The mayor was Mary Gray Jenkins. She was in office, and actually her cousin Martha Hooper was the general manager of the paper. And Miss Martha, her mother was Miss Nell Harris, who was the editor for many years of the Ashland City Times. And the Harris family, they owned and operated the paper. And I never had the opportunity to meet Miss Nell. I started in 1996, and I believe she died a few months after I started. But Miss Martha, she was at the paper for many years, for like 30 years, and she was the business manager, general manager of the paper. So, Martha quickly told me, be careful what you say in Cheatham County, and she said because everybody is related to everybody, and she was related to the mayor, it turned out.
Well, that's still true today. So
That's right. I've been here for almost 30 years, and I'm still finding out who's related to who after all these years.
What was, in your mind, the biggest story?
I think the biggest story, the most significant story, was the flood of May 2010. Had never seen anything like that in Cheatham County. And, I just reflect back on that weekend when the flood happened. And, we saw, like on that Sunday morning, there was some flooding on the Tennessee Waltz Parkway at A.O. Smith and River Bluff Park. But then, that next day, it just seemed like a lot of our county was underwater.
Kept rising.
Yeah, it just kept rising. And, there was just significant damage in Cheatham County. Hundreds of homes were damaged or destroyed. And then our business base as well. A.O. Smith, which is our largest industry, they sustained significant damage, as well as our Walmart. They were closed for a month while they made their repairs. And so, we didn't have a Walmart here in Cheatham County, so everybody had to, go to another Walmart, and,
Like sales tax.
Yeah, that sales tax. And then, the Owen Place Shopping Center, that was underwater as well. Also, our schools, especially in South Cheatham County, they were damaged as well, including Pegram Elementary. And then the most significant damage was at Kingston Springs Elementary School. And actually, the school board decided at that time they canceled all of the classes at all 4 schools in South Cheatham County.
Around early May.
It was
May May. They had another month of school left, basically. And
they didn't have school the whole month of May. And like I said, the most significant damage was at Kingston Springs Elementary School. And one thing that I do remember, there was a NBC show called School Pride, and they brought in a team of volunteers as well as community volunteers, and they made over Kingston Springs Elementary School, and they filmed an episode of that TV show here in Cheatham County at Kingston Springs.
And it was a big help. And of course, the water, you mentioned A.O. Smith, they've got marks inside the factory now that show how high the water was. And it did wipe them out. I mean, millions and millions of dollars worth of damage, which they didn't have enough insurance to cover that. So it truly took a punch out of A.O. Smith, and the county and the city both, and the state all came together to try to help cover some of those losses to keep A.O. Smith here. And from that, like I said, the berm
Yeah.
came about. And you talk about that some areas are still continuing to recover from the flood here 13 years later. You talked about Owen Place, and of course Walmart got back open, but Peoples, I think it was Peoples,
Yeah,
never
yeah,
came back.
yeah, they did.
Several businesses never came back from the flood, and they finally renovated, and they're starting to fill that center up now. You see Waffle House and some of those now
Yeah,
opened
yeah.
out through there. Obviously weren't there at the time, but even the berm, which has been completed, what, a couple of years now. But the whole purpose of that berm is to protect that factory. So for the next flood, it won't flood the factory, hopefully, of that level. And of course, I've heard both 500-year flood and 1,000-year flood. That's how bad it was. It's so out of place, and we've never experienced anything like that. And you're right, the number of homes, I think Edwin Hogan said it's 500 or 600 homes
Yeah,
that were
yeah.
impacted. I mean, you have a tornado, you might have, tornado we had down south just a few years ago had, I think, 30 to 40 homes damaged. You start talking about 500 in
Yeah.
a flood, that is
Yeah.
a total.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
I remember the Ashland City Fire Department. They took me out on the Cumberland River right after the flooding, and it was just so surreal to see the damage from that viewpoint. I remember I got on the boat right at River Bluff Park, and River Bluff Park was completely submerged. The only thing you saw was the building there that has the restrooms and that small pavilion. You just saw the roof of that, and everything else was underwater, and it was just so hard to believe that much water was in Ashland City.
Yeah, absolutely. It came on up close to Vine Street.
Yeah, it did. There was some flooding there near the post office on Vine Street as well. I think, like I said, it's just a Midway Supply. There was just a lot of businesses that sustained damage. And then in the south end of the county, there were 3 homes that were washed away on Harpeth View Trail and Kingston Springs Road, right across from Harpeth High School, Harpeth Middle School, and just to see some of those pictures and some of that video footage, from that time, that is just unimaginable.
And I remember that aerial, somebody was up in a plane, took aerial shots. And at Cheatham Dam, you could see the dam, but it was like the
Yeah.
river had swallowed nothing else there. Like you see it now, and there's such stages, and all that's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just
Just widespread. Hope that we never see anything like that again here in Cheatham County.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Years later, 13 years later, we're still responding and trying to prevent, if it comes again, try to be in a better position to
Yeah.
ever take on anything like that. But the impact it had, people don't realize. You start going through these layers, and the countless number of families that were probably relocated or maybe left the county or whatever had an impact that they may still be here if that flood had not hit.
Yeah.
And continued here. So the impact was incredible. You're probably right. I agree with you. That flood is the biggest one in the
Yeah.
last 30 years
Yeah.
that I know of.
They would, ask the media, the newspapers, and Corky and WQSV to help, relay the news to the community. And, at that time, still internet and social media was not as prevalent.
Because they were having to do drops of water and food in places
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the water got up so high, people could not get out. It was
Yeah,
isolated.
yeah.
They didn't get hit by the flood, but they were stranded by the flood.
Yeah, some of the roads were still flooded over, and they couldn't get to them.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was a crazy time.
It was.
And talk a little bit more about the Ashland City Times, then we'll move on. But Ashland City Times, and you talk about Miss Snell Harris. I remember growing up, and of course, at that point it was on Ruth Drive.
Yes.
And if you wanted something in the paper, you dropped it off there at that little office, and Miss Snell was there, and she would take it, and hopefully you'd see it in the paper later in the week. But Ashland City Times was the news source and the only news source. Like I said, there wasn't any internet or anything like that.
Yeah.
And Wednesday was a big day. Wednesday was a big day because the Times would hit, and so you knew the Times would hit. And then it went kind of from Miss Snell. Which somebody told me, she never told me this, and I was fortunate to meet her and talk to her several
Yeah,
times. She
yeah.
never told me this, but other people have said she never wanted to report bad news.
That's right.
And
That's yes.
Like, well, okay. But then obviously when Gannett comes in, that mindset changes a little bit to put a full news out there. But it was still, that was your connection as far as knowing what was going on in the community. It was the Ashland City Times every Wednesday.
It was.
And the other interesting thing, which has gone away that I hope people will understand and comprehend, is that back in elections, when the election was on Thursday, people actually formulated their election plans, and this is for early voting too. So you had 99.9% of people probably vote on election day on that Thursday. The plan was to hit something in that paper the day before the election they could have an impact and get you votes come Thursday. And I remember several that were set up that way. And of course, everybody was always worried about a stinger or something because you couldn't reply back to the next week.
That's
if you got
right.
it floated out there in that Wednesday paper, it could have a real impact. And I'm not sure if it ever did or not, but maybe it did. I don't
Yeah.
recall right offhand specifics of that, but I've heard other people talk about that was their game plan. It was all built around Ashland City Times because that was the source in the county. At that time, there wasn't a paper in the South or North either. It was that Ashland City Times
yeah.
covered the whole county and did that. But it was important. It was important to the community.
It was. And then you were talking about elections, and then for many years, everybody would gather on the courthouse lawn, and they would have the big board number up there. And again, I know we keep saying this, but this was the day before internet and social media, but this is where everybody gathered.
Oh,
and so as the results came in, they would change the numbers there, and by the end of the night, they would know who the winner was. But it was always a big community event, and, they did it for many, many years. And I think in 2022 it came back.
We did try to revive that, but the thing we found, and of course it's killed newspapers to a large degree too, is just especially weekly, I mean, and really daily newspapers, because people are getting all their information quickly on internet or Facebook or whatever. Not always accurate, but have you seen an Ashland Times lately?
I haven't.
So I haven't seen a county exchange either,
Yeah.
Cheatham exchange either. So something's missing out of that, but at the same time, I understand we've moved on and stuff like that.
But we were blessed, many
were.
years ago to have 3 newspapers in the county with the I-24 Exchange and
the South
the
Cheatham
Ashland
Advocate.
City, and the South Cheatham Advocate.
Dale
Mr. Jim
Graham.
Lewis started that, and then Miss Dale Graham took over after he left, and she did a wonderful job covering the South Cheatham communities of Pegram and Kingston Springs.
We were community papers, and I think we had a longer life than most because we put stuff in there they weren't going to get on Channel 4, and that was the whole claim to fame back when you started with the Times.
Yeah.
The stuff that you would cover Times, unless there was they thought some scandal or something that was going on, they didn't show up or somebody was dead. No, they didn't show up to Cheatham County trying to cover something. So that was the niche that made it work, and people look forward to that and find, they would get something out of that paper they're not going to get anywhere else.
And speaking of that, think of the Cheatham Chatter. That was a popular.
Let's talk about Cheatham Chatter.
That was a popular feature of the Ashland City Times for many years. Miss
Now tell
Ann.
us, and people need to understand it because they won't. If they weren't there at the time, they won't understand how that came about. What was that involved with, and how did you get your information?
This was a weekly column in the Ashland City Times, and when I was there, it was 2 ladies that wrote it. It was Ann Robinson Eden and Miss Billie Jean Perry, and they would come in with notepads, and they would have everything handwritten, or they would bring in church bulletins, and they would bring their information in. And I always say it was the social media or the Facebook of its day, because you could find out who was getting married, or who was having a baby, or about family reunions, or who was sick and in the hospital, or if you were visiting somebody or had gone out to eat with somebody, it was in Cheatham Chatter. And like I said, they would bring it in, and a lot of it was handwritten. And then we had Miss Faye Dickens. She was our typist at the time, so she had to go back and then type all that information in and then format it for us so we could have it as we designed the paper. But that was a popular feature for many, many years in the Ashland City Times, and I think it's something that everyone looked forward to reading every
I still,
Wednesday.
to this day, hear people talk about Cheatham Chatter.
That's right.
We used to have Cheatham Chatter do that. We used to have Cheatham Chatter. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these words from the Cheatham County Library and Cheatham County Archives.
Shh. Welcome to Cheatham County Library in Ashland City, where not only can you check out a book, but you can do so much more.
The Cheatham County Archives houses the county's founding documents. Our oldest document dates to 1854, 2 years before Cheatham County was established. Founded in 2019, the Archives preserves priceless documents and photographs. Visitors are welcomed Monday through Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Tennessee is number one in the country for election integrity. The Heritage Foundation named Tennessee the state where it's easiest to vote and hardest to cheat. Laws passed by the General Assembly, administered by the 95 county election commissions, protect your ballot box.
All right, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. Our guest today, Tim Adkins. He was editor of the Ashland City Times for years, also a Ashland City Council member, and also now works with the school system. So we're going to talk about those other two careers, but a few more quick questions about the Ashland City Times, because we were talking about the how things had changed in the newspaper business, but the newspaper itself changed from the time you started in '96 as far as production, which I find incredible, the changes that we also went through. We came up in 2000. And like I said, I had a 35 millimeter camera that we were still getting film developed for the first few months. Then we got a hold of a digital camera, which changed the world.
Yeah, it did.
But talk about the production of Ash City Times and kind of the week, because we all had that same week process where you started and laid out and be ready and get it to press. But tell us about a week at the Ash City Times and all the things that changed over the years.
Yeah, well, the Ashland City Times, it came out on a Wednesday, so we would, right when that edition came out, we would start working on the next edition, and our production day, our deadline day was a Monday, and then it was printed on a Tuesday, and actually we printed at the Leaf Chronicle in Clarksville. But when I started in 1996, we still had a dark room at our office, so we would develop our black and white photos, and then we also had a camera, and we had the color film in there, and then on the weekends we would go to either Nashville or Clarksville to a 1-hour photo lab and get our pictures developed, the ones that were going to be in color, either like on the front page of the paper or on the front of the sports page. And so so really, if you wanted it in color, you weren't going to have a picture made on a Monday. But in 1999 we received our first digital camera, and I was telling Carrie that we just thought that was big time. We could take as many pictures as we wanted, and we could even take pictures on a Monday in color, and we could put those on the front page if we wanted to do so. But like, we went every Tuesday to the Leaf Chronicle, and we would print out all of our pages, and we would proof them, and then they would print the paper on Tuesday afternoon, and then they would deliver it back to Ashland City that night and drop it off at the post office, and then it went out in the mail on Wednesday, and they would put them in the racks all around the county as well. So just a lot has changed in the last few years.
Let's move on now to you leave the Times and you take on basically a PR position with the school system. Tell us what that was about, what you do with the school system, and what you've seen as a school system over the last 5, 6, 7 years that you've been with the school system.
I started in September of 2016, and I'm responsible for all of our communication for the school district. So I help maintain our district website. I work with our webmasters at our various schools for each of our websites, the individual school websites. Also, I create the content for social media, for our Facebook, our X, our formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and create the content for that. So pictures, videos. Our director of schools, Dr. Kathy Beck, she has charged me with telling our story. But as I said, everything has turned to social media, and that's where everybody is getting their news and information. So you want to have that information out there.
Well, something's happening in one of the schools, or I guess a decision to close for weather related or flu or whatever the case may be. You're at the helm trying to get that out.
That's right. That we are responsible for that communication. We have a mass notification system. It sends an email and an all call out to our families, so they are aware of these closings or other announcements. So that's a big part of what we do as well. I'm excited about the career and technical education programs that we have in the Cheatham County School District right now. That is formerly known as vocational education. That's what a lot of people will know that as. But the Tennessee Department of Education, they are funding our CTE programs right now. Actually, in 2021, we received almost $1 million grant to revitalize the auto mechanics, auto body, and welding program of studies at Cheatham County Central High School. But also the state has set aside additional funding. It's innovative models grant money for each of our high schools and middle schools. Each of our high schools are receiving $1 million, and each of our middle schools $500,000 to invest into our CTE programs. And actually, on the middle school level, we have implemented some exploratory CTE programs. So when you're in 7th and 8th grade, you're getting an opportunity to see and take some of the exploratory CTE programs that you will have on the high school level. So it will just be a seamless transition from middle school to high school. But that is one thing that we are excited about for the Cheatham County School District and the CTE opportunities for our students.
Oh, I'm so glad to see that's coming back
Yes.
in a bold way, because that gives other opportunities for students who may not be college bound or set for college or want to go to college.
That's right. And we have a lot of support from our industries in Cheatham County, and we have some partnerships with them, and they will be able to graduate from high school and immediately have a job. And that is one thing that we started a few years ago with the school district. Now we have a job fair, and we hold that in May, just a few weeks before graduation. So for those students that are not going to college, they can meet with some of these businesses at the job fair, and then when they graduate, they have a job waiting for them. And a lot of our students have had that opportunity. Once they graduate, they have a job waiting for them.
That's awesome.
Also, I work with a lot of our district and community events. When Dr. Beck came on board, we started a State of the District breakfast, and we have that every January, where our community stakeholders, we have that at Cheatham Middle School, and we just showcase and highlight everything that is happening in the school district. And also another project that we work on is our Cheatham County Education Hall of Fame, and we started that in 2021. Our former school board member, Tim Ray, a year before that, he started the Cheatham County Sports Hall of Fame, and when he was on the school board, he suggested that we have an Education Hall of Fame. So I help oversee that, and that is one of my favorite projects to work on throughout the year.
And it's been another great thing to preserve that history. You had several of my teachers in there, and I'm so glad to see them in there. Christine Bale and some of those that you said Christine Bale to a lot of folks today, they wouldn't know who you're talking about. She had such an impact in West Cheatham and the West Cheatham School in my life. I mean, so, but other ones that you've had, and y'all have inducted, and I like seeing the class every year. And it is broad. I mean, from a standpoint back, it's going back into decades, and bringing some of these people out that if you hadn't been able to do this, I worry they would just be lost. Once their students are gone, nobody would remember them and understand the impact they had.
Some that date back to the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, such as Miss Carrie Street. She was a principal at Pegram in Kingston Springs many years ago, as well as Cheatham County Central High School educators such as Effie Mayfielder and Fannie Lou Barfield. They were sisters, and a lot of longtime Cheatham Countyans, they will remember them as well as Miss Brenda Boyd and Wayne Darrell, just a lot of well-known popular teachers at Cheatham County Central High School.
Let's talk about your other career, which I find interesting. How did you veer off into politics?
After I left the newspaper and I started working for the school district, I would tell people that I missed, covering and, the government meetings. I mean, for so many years, I went to the Cheatham County Commission and, school board meetings and city council meetings. And, I just missed going to the meetings and, staying abreast of what was happening in my community. And in 2017, there was a vacancy on the Ashland City Council in Ward 2. And so I decided to seek election, and I won and served my first 4 years, and I was reelected in 2021, and just very thankful for this opportunity to serve my community in this capacity.
What was the difference between sitting out in the audience with a pen, taking notes, and trying to capture the story to being on the other side of the counter and making those decisions?
It's a big difference. You hear from different people in the community when you make a decision. They may not be happy with the decision that you have made, but you try to keep the community as whole in the back of your mind and what is best for the community as well.
You enjoy it? I guess you do if you ran a second time.
I do. I'm just thankful and blessed, especially with my role in the school district, that I'm able to continue to live and work and serve the Cheatham County community.
So you're mid in your second term.
I am.
And they have rearranged some elections, or election dates, I should say, for the town of Ashland City, where they were usually in December.
They were always the first Saturday in December every 2 years. And a few years ago, we made the decision to change that. And so now they are going to be in August. So our next election will be in August of 2024, and they will be in conjunction with the county elections as well.
And state primaries.
In our state primaries. And I think the town of Pegram, their elections are in August as well. So when people go to the polls in August of 2024, it will be the county election, the primary elections, and then the Pegram and Ashland City elections. And in 2024, we will be electing a mayor and then 3 council members.
And it should be a whole lot better turnout.
It is, and that was one reason that we decided to move the election. There were times that you may just have 200 or 300 people that would come out on that first Saturday to vote, and we wanted there to be a larger turnout, and we believe by moving it to August, there will be a larger turnout.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly where. If you can bring me up to date on, because for years it's kind of been mayor. I know a few years back Murray Hawkins was there as kind of a city administrator, and then once I think had another city administrator wasn't working out too well, so they just basically reverted back to mayors in charge of day-to-day operations, and the council will oversee things. And now you're looking to go back to a city administrator type system or organization. Tell us about that.
Yes, that's correct. Over the past year, we have been talking about adding that city administrator position. We have actually have voted on creating the position, and we have money that is included in our budget this year for that position. Our mayor is actually a part-time mayor. Ashland City is growing. We have a lot of projects that are taking shape, and we just feel like with the growth that is happening, we just need that person in place with that knowledge and expertise that can move us forward.
And not only the growth, I mean, actually you got the parks, you got roads, you got public works, you got water, you got sewer, all under the city umbrella. Not to mention the police, the fire, other emergency responders. So it's quite an undertaking to keep the city going every day.
It is, and like I said, it's an exciting time in Ashland City. In 2023, we opened a new fire station number 1 on North Main Street. We also started the construction of a new sewer treatment plant off the Tennessee Waltz Parkway. We also broke ground on a new city hall, and we also have a parks property that we are developing along the Tennessee Waltz Parkway next to Riverbluff Park, and that is one thing that I am personally excited about. And we have a lot of plans in place for this property, but one thing that we think that will be great for our city is we will be developing a sports complex. So we will have baseball, softball, and soccer fields where we will be able to host tournaments, and in turn we'll be able to generate revenue for our city as well. But we hope to start construction on those fields very soon. But also we have other plans in place that we have talked about. Actually, in 2021, we started having some community meetings to get input from our residents on what they would like to see. And some of the possibilities that we are talking about is a splash pad, as well as a amphitheater and a river walk and an RV park. So a lot of possibilities for this property, and this will be done in phases, and it will be done over multiple years as funding allows.
A lot of opportunities. Just so much opportunities for Ashland City and Cheatham County. Absolutely, I agree with that.
And we also are talking about in the future for years to come a new senior center and a new community center as well. Our architect has already been working with our senior center director and our parks director on plans for these buildings. So when the time comes, that will already be in place, and if this funding allows, we'll be able to move forward on those as that time comes.
Growing city.
Yes,
Growing city.
yes.
Growing opportunities too.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, Tim, thank you so much for being with us today. Is there anything else you would want to talk about or think about that would need to be preserved so that 100 years from now somebody will be watching this and go, I didn't know that. I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm just thankful that the community trusted me for so many years to tell their stories, through the Ashland City Times and now through the Cheatham County School District. Just appreciate to be a part of the Cheatham County community. Like I said earlier, of all the places I have been, Cheatham County is home, and I'm just very fortunate to live and work and serve here in Cheatham County.
We all are. We all are. We're truly blessed to be at Cheatham County. Tim Adkins, thank you so much for being with us today. Guest today, Tim Adkins, who was former editor of the Ashland City Times, current PR person for the Cheatham County school system. Also on the side does a little tinkering with politics with the town of Ashland City as council member. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we will see you soon, hopefully right here. Again, thanks to the Archives of Cheatham County and Cheatham County Library for helping make this possible. Y'all have a good day. We'll talk soon.